Lieutenant Abigail Mason stood at the edge of the forest on Colony World Haven, her eyes fixed on the darkening sky. Something was wrong. The setting sun painted strange colors against a trail of smoke cutting across the horizon. That was no meteor. "Squad, eyes up," she said into her comm unit. "We've got an unidentified object entering atmosphere, southwest quadrant." Around her, the 5 members of her patrol team immediately stopped their usual end-of-day routines. Eric Williams, their communications specialist, was already pulling out his field scanner. "No scheduled arrivals for 3 days, Lieutenant," he confirmed, his voice tense. "And it's not broadcasting any Terran Alliance codes." The object grew, larger, its trajectory becoming more erratic by the second. Whatever it wasn't making a controlled landing. Abigail squinted against the fading light. "Daniel, ready your medical kit. Everyone else, weapons at ready position. Defensive formation only," she ordered. She didn't think they were under attack. But 5 years in the peacekeeping force had taught her to prepare for anything. The patrol spread out in practiced movements as the object, now clearly some kind of ship, descended in a barely controlled fall. It skipped once against the treetops half a mile distant, then crashed with a sound that shook the ground beneath their boots. A plume of dirt and debris shot into the air. "Move out," Abigail said. Cautious approach. They covered the distance, quickly, pushing through dense underbrush. The crash site was easy to find, a long scar cut through the forest, ending in a small clearing where the ship now rested. It wasn't large, perhaps twice the size of a Terran shuttle, with an unusual, oval shape. Its hull gleamed with an iridescent material Abigail had never seen before. "That's not one of ours," muttered Olivia Beck, the squad's weapons specialist. "Not from any human world." "First contact?" Daniel Ross whispered, his medical bag already in hand rather than his rifle. Abigail raised her hand for silence as they approached. The ship's hull was cracked in several places and a thin liquid that looked like mercury dripped from the wounds. There was movement inside, shadows passing behind what appeared to be viewports. "Eric, stay on comms. If this goes badly, Haven Colony needs to know." She took a deep breath. "Daniel, with me. Everyone else, covering positions." They approached the ship cautiously. As they grew closer, a section of the hull suddenly shifted, parts sliding away to reveal an opening. It wasn't an attack, it was a door. And in that doorway stood a being that was unmistakably not human. The creature was tall, but looked like it might blow away in a strong wind. Its limbs were impossibly thin, its skin nearly transparent, showing a complex network of veins and organs beneath. Its large head contained oversized eyes that blinked rapidly in the fading light of Haven's sunset. It swayed, clearly injured, and reached out one 7-fingered hand in what might have been a plea for help. Then it collapsed. Daniel rushed forward, immediately his doctor's instincts overriding any caution. "Lieutenant, there are more inside. All appear to be injured." Abigail made a quick decision. "Eric, notify the colony we've made first contact with an unknown species. Request medical support. Everyone else help Daniel, but stay alert." Inside the ship they found 5 more of the aliens. The interior was filled with a thin mist that smelled like cinnamon and made Abigail's skin tingle. The aliens lay across what seemed to be control stations and curved benches. All showed signs of injury, their translucent skin bruised to a deep purple in places, and the same mercury-like substance leaking from cuts. Daniel worked quickly, applying pressure to wounds and checking what he could only guess were vital signs. "Their physiology is unlike anything I've seen," he said, "but they're definitely alive. This one's heart, at least I think it's a heart, is beating nearly 3 times as fast as a human's." Eric joined them, carrying his portable translator. "This might help," he said, setting up the device near one of the aliens who seemed less injured than the others. "The universal translation protocols might not work perfectly, but it's worth a try." The alien's large eyes fixed on Eric, then on the device. It made a series of clicks and whistles. The translator hummed, processing. "Gratitude," came the mechanical voice from the translator. "Help, escape, collective hunt us." Who are you? Abigail asked slowly, keeping her voice gentle. Where do you come from? The alien's thin chest rose and fell rapidly. We are Nixians. Last ship. Others captured. Collective says, we are unfit. Not worthy of stars. Eric adjusted the translator settings. Who is the collective? Galactic. Collective I many species and strong rule. We are deemed evolutionary mistake. Too weak, bodies fail, but minds strong. The aliens seem to be struggling to stay conscious. They take our world. Move us to Death Planet, slow extinction. Daniel looked up from treating another Nixian. They're refugees, he said quietly. Facing genocide because they're physically weak. The Nixian reached out, its delicate fingers touching Abigail's hand. The contact sent a wave of emotions through her, fear, desperation, and something else. Hope. Did anyone follow you? She asked. Not yet. Stole ship. Escape notice. For now. The implications hit Abigail hard. Haven was a small colony, barely 50 years old. The Terran Alliance had only recently begun expanding into this region of space. They knew there were other intelligent species out there, but formal contact had been limited. And now, suddenly, they were being drawn into what sounded like an interstellar conflict, Lieutenant, Eric said quietly, checking his communications device. Colony Administrator Winters wants an immediate report. Captain Rodriguez is mobilizing a security team to secure the crash site. One of the other Nixians had managed to sit up. It spoke, and the translator converted its words. If you report us, Collective will come. They will demand, we be surrendered. Your people, in danger too. Abigail felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. Protocol was clear. First contact scenarios required immediate notification of Earth authorities. But these beings needed medical help now, and from what they were saying, reporting their presence might doom them. Daniel, can they be moved safely? She asked. With proper care, yes. Their injuries aren't immediately life-threatening, but they're severely weakened. She made her decision. We're taking them to the colony medical facility. Eric, tell Administrator Winters we've encountered survivors of a ship crash and we're bringing them in for medical attention. Technical difficulties with our scanners mean we don't have full details yet. It wasn't a lie, exactly. Just buying time until she could assess the full situation. The Nixian who had first spoken reached out again, this time touching her face with feather-light fingers. Again, emotions flooded through her, but this time she felt gratitude so intense it brought tears to her eyes. Thank you, the translator spoke. Others left us to die. Humans, different? Abigail nodded slowly. Yes, she said. We are. The main conference room of Haven Colony buzzed with tense voices. Administrator Patricia Winters stood at the head of the table, her face tight with worry. Captain Kevin Rodriguez paced along the wall, occasionally glancing at the security feed, showing the medical bay where the aliens were being treated. Lieutenant Mason, you should have contacted us immediately upon discovering non-human life forms, Winters said. Her voice wasn't angry, just strained. We have protocols for this. Abigail stood straight, hands behind her back. With respect, Administrator, they were injured and needed immediate medical attention. I made a judgment call. A call that might put our entire colony at risk, Captain Rodriguez cut in. If what these Nixians say is true, we could be facing diplomatic complications with a powerful galactic organization we know nothing about. The door slid open, and Dr. Sophia Black walked in. The colony's chief medical officer looked tired but excited. The Nixians are stable, she announced. Their physiology is fascinating. They're oxygen breathers like us, but their cellular structure is unlike anything in our medical database. Are they a threat? Rodriguez asked bluntly. Dr. Black shook her head. Physically? No. They're extremely fragile compared to humans. Their bone density is about a third of ours, and their muscles are designed for precision rather than power. One of them, Elix, told me they evolved on a low-gravity world with a thick atmosphere. Have you learned anything else about them? Abigail asked. They're remarkably intelligent, Sophia replied. Eric's translator is working better now that we've had more language samples to work with. Elix has been quite talkative once we got their pain under control. The door opened again and Eric Williams entered with a small device in his hand. Behind him walked Jason Moore, the colony's head engineer. Jason's eyes were wide with excitement. You all need to see this, Jason said, placing a small metallic cube on the table. This is part of their ship's energy system. It's producing more power than anything we have, pound for pound, and it's been running continuously for what Elix says is the equivalent of 15 Earth years. Patricia frowned. So they have advanced technology. All the more reason to be cautious. The last thing we need is to be caught in the middle of some interstellar conflict over technology rights. It's more than just advanced tech, Jason insisted. Their entire approach to engineering is different. Where we build for durability and power, they design for efficiency and sustainability. Their ship's hull is made of a material that can self-repair minor damage. They've adapted their technology to compensate for their physical limitations. Captain Rodriguez remained unconvinced. That doesn't change the fact that harboring them could be seen as an act of hostility by this galactic collective. We're a small colony, barely established. We can't afford to make powerful enemies. The conference room fell silent as they all considered the implications. Then Abigail spoke up. I'd like to bring one of them here to speak for themselves. Elix has recovered enough to move around with assistance. Administrator Winters hesitated, then nodded. Very well. 20 minutes later, Elix entered the conference room supported by Daniel Ross. The Nixian moved slowly, each step careful and deliberate. The colonists around the table tried not to stare, but it was difficult. Under the bright lights, Elix's translucent skin revealed the outline of internal organs and a complex network of veins. The alien's large eyes blinked slowly as they adjusted to the room. Thank you for helping us, Elix said through the translator device Eric had set up. The mechanical voice couldn't convey emotion, but the slight tremor in Elix's thin frame spoke of nervousness or exhaustion. We'd like to understand your situation better, Administrator Winters said. Why is the collective pursuing your people? Elix's long fingers tapped a rhythm on the table. The collective values physical strength and dominance. Their founding species, the Arctarians, Vrel, and Domari, believe evolution should favor the strong. When they discovered our world 50 of your years ago, they judged us unfit. Unfit for what? Abigail asked. Unfit to be equals. Unfit to hold a planet with resources they desired. Elix's large eyes blinked rapidly. They claimed our evolution was a mistake, that advanced intelligence in physically weak bodies was inefficient. Rather than outright genocide, they chose what they considered mercy. They stripped our world of resources, then relocated survivors to a high-gravity planet where we can barely move. A slow death. The room fell silent again. Then Patricia Winters asked the question they were all thinking. What will happen when they realize you've come here? They will demand our return, Elix said simply. They will cite collective law, which states that evolutionarily compromised species must be managed for the greater stability of the galaxy. They will threaten sanctions if you refuse. While they had been talking, the door had opened again. Grace Thompson, one of the colony's school teachers, had entered quietly. Now, she spoke up from the back of the room. And what would happen if we stood with you? If we refused to hand you over? Captain Rodriguez frowned at the interruption, but Elix turned toward Grace with interest. Humans are unknown to the collective. They have heard of you but consider you a minor distant species. If you defied them... Elix paused. It would be unprecedented. No species has ever challenged their evolutionary doctrine. Grace stepped forward. My grandfather used to tell me stories about Earth's history, about times when people judged others as inferior based on physical differences. We've moved beyond that thinking. I won't stand by while it happens to another species. Around the colony, word had spread about the aliens. A small crowd had gathered outside the administration building. Some looked worried, others curious. A few held signs that read, "Haven is for all," and "Strength isn't just physical." Inside the conference room, the debate continued. We should contact Earth immediately, Rodriguez insisted. This is beyond our authority to decide. Earth is 4 months away at fastest communication speeds, Abigail countered. By then, the collective could already be here. We need to make our own decision. Sophia Black spoke up again. The Nixians have already shared medical knowledge that could help our colony. Their understanding of cellular repair is decades ahead of ours. Jason nodded eagerly. And their energy technology could solve our power fluctuation problems. They're willing to teach us. Administrator Winters looked troubled. The risks. Sometimes the greatest risk is doing nothing, Abigail said quietly. She stood and faced the room. Throughout human history, we've defined ourselves by our willingness to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. The Nixians need our help, and maybe, just maybe, we need them too. Outside the window, the colony's second sun was setting, casting long shadows across Haven's main plaza. The decision they made now would change not just their small colony, but potentially humanity's place among the stars. 3 months passed quickly on Haven. The 6 Nixian refugees had been given a section of the colony to make their own. Their crashed ship had been moved to an engineering bay where Jason Moore and his team studied its technology with Nixian guidance. The morning sky turned an unusual shade of purple as Abigail looked up from her patrol route. A flash of light caught her attention. She raised her binoculars and froze. "Eric," she called into her comm unit. "Are we expecting any ships today?" "Negative, Lieutenant," came the quick reply. "Then we have company. Alert the colony. I count 3 vessels entering orbit. Design unknown." Alarm sounded across Haven. In the colony's command center, Administrator Winters and Captain Rodriguez watched the main screen as the unknown ships took position above them. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. The screen flickered and revealed a being unlike any they had seen before. It stood nearly 7 feet tall with thick armored skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were small but intense, set in a face that seemed permanently locked in a scowl. "I am Ambassador Vexitari of the Galactic Collective," the being announced in perfect English. They had clearly been studying human languages. "We have information that you are harboring evolutionary deviants, classified as Nixians. This violates collective law. Surrender them immediately." Administrator Winters stepped forward. "I am Patricia Winters, Administrator of Haven Colony. We are not subject to collective law. The Nixians came to us as refugees seeking asylum, which we have granted." Vexitari's upper arms crossed over its chest. "This is not a negotiation. The Nixians are a protected species under collective management. Their genetic line is being carefully monitored to prevent further evolutionary mistakes. Those who escaped are disrupting our conservation efforts." "Conservation?" Patricia couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. "From what we understand, you've condemned them to a slow death. Their species would have died out naturally due to their physical inadequacies," Vexitari replied coldly. "We simply manage the process with dignity. Now, you have 6 hours to deliver all Nixians to our custody, or we will retrieve them ourselves." The screen went dark. "Can they do that?" Patricia asked Rodriguez. "Just come down and take them?" Before the captain could answer, another alarm sounded. "New contact," the sensor officer called out. "Another ship just entered the system. It's one of ours." The massive form of the Earth Defense Force vessel, Defiance, appeared on the screen, positioning itself between the colony and the collective ships. "Haven Colony. This is Commander Samuel Wright of the EDF Defiance. We received your distress call. Looks like we arrived just in time." A wave of relief washed over the command center. Earth had received their message after all. Down in the medical center, a small girl named Lily Chen watched with wide eyes as a Nixian healer named Tella worked on her arm. Lily had been diagnosed with a rare bone disease months ago. Doctors had done their best, but it was the Nixians' advanced medical knowledge that had finally offered hope. "Will it hurt?" Lily asked as Tella prepared a glowing blue substance. "Just a small pinch," Tella replied through the now advanced translator. "Your bones will grow stronger than ever." Lily's mother, Susan, watched with tears in her eyes. Before the Nixians arrived, her daughter had been given less than a year to live. Now she was getting better every day. In the colony's main hall, an emergency meeting was underway. Commander Wright had joined them via secure link. The collective has a formidable presence in this sector, Wright explained. But they're not ready for open conflict with Earth. That's why they're using diplomatic pressure instead of simply attacking. What do we know about them? Abigail asked. Our intelligence is limited, Wright admitted. They're a consortium of about 20 dominant species who control hundreds of worlds. Physically powerful species hold most of the authority. They've been expanding their territory for centuries. Alan Parker, the colony's security chief, frowned. If they're so concerned about the Nixians, why wait 3 months to come for them? Because they didn't know where to look, explained Elix, who had become the unofficial leader of the Nixian refugees. Our escape was meant to take us to an uninhabited world. Finding your colony was an accident. Then how did they find you now? Alan pressed. Elix's large eyes blinked slowly. Someone must have told them. The implications of that statement hung heavy in the air. Someone in the colony had contacted the collective. Commander Wright cleared his throat. Regardless, Earth has authorized me to protect this colony and the refugees you've granted asylum. We've suspected the collective's practices violated galactic ethical standards for some time. This gives us a chance to take a stand. Up in orbit, the standoff continued. The Defiance was a formidable warship, but it was outnumbered 3-1 by the collective vessels. Ambassador Vexitari requested another communication, this time directly with Commander Wright. Your interference is unwarranted, Vexitari stated. The humans of Haven do not understand what they are protecting. The Nixians are not simply physically weak. They possess dangerous mental abilities that threaten galactic stability. Wright raised an eyebrow. What abilities would those be, Ambassador? Vexitari hesitated. They are empathic manipulators. They use their perceived weakness to evoke sympathy, then exploit that emotional connection. It is why they must be contained. Back in the colony, Abigail suddenly understood the strange sensation she had felt when the Nixian had touched her face after the crash, the flood of emotions that had seemed to come from outside herself. As the diplomatic tensions escalated above, Alan Parker received an urgent alert from a security sensor on the colony's edge. A small collective shuttle had landed secretly during the distraction of the orbital standoff. Armed figures were approaching. The Nixian quarters, it was a diversion, Alan realized, grabbing his weapon. Abigail, they're going after the Nixians now. Abigail's squad moved quickly, intercepting the collective soldiers before they reached the Nixian quarters. The aliens were large and heavily armored, but the human defenders had the advantage of knowing their territory. The brief firefight ended with the collective soldiers retreating, but not before Abigail came face to face with one of them. A hulking reptilian being whose armor identified it as a Vrel, one of the founding species. Elix had mentioned. Your kind will regret standing with the weak, the Vrel hissed at her before escaping. When the collective learned their covert operation had failed, Ambassador Vexitari was forced to reconsider. The humans had proven more capable than expected. And now that Earth was officially involved, the diplomatic consequences of forcing the issue had become more complicated. This matter is not concluded, Vexitari informed Commander Wright. The collective will be watching your interactions with the Nixians closely. When their true nature becomes clear to you, we will return. The collective ships withdrew from orbit, though everyone suspected they wouldn't go far. In the aftermath, Abigail found Elix waiting outside the command center. Is it true? She asked quietly. About the empathic abilities? Elix's thin shoulders rose in what she now recognized as their version of a nod. We can sense and share emotions through touch. It is how we communicate most deeply with each other. We cannot control minds, only connect with them. Why didn't you tell us? Because it is the reason they fear us, Elix replied simply. In a society built on physical dominance, those who can inspire empathy are dangerous. We do not manipulate, Lieutenant Mason. We connect. There is a difference. Abigail considered this as the colony's twin suns set in the distance. The collective had withdrawn for now, but this was only the beginning. Word of Haven's defiance spread quickly through human space. 4 weeks after the collective's retreat, a small fleet of Earth vessels arrived in the system. Leading them was the flagship Concordia, carrying Admiral Olivia Bennett. The Admiral was a tall woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She toured the colony with Administrator Winters, stopping to observe the changes the Nixians had brought. In the medical center, Nixian healers worked alongside human doctors. In the engineering bay, their technologies were being carefully integrated with human systems. Impressive, Admiral Bennett said, as she watched a Nixian energy cell power an entire section of the colony that previously required 3 times the resources. When your reports reached Earth, many were skeptical, but I see the potential here. They've been incredible partners, Patricia replied. Their medical advances alone have saved dozens of lives. The Admiral nodded. That's why I'm here. Earth's government has authorized me to establish a formal alliance with the Nixians, the first human-alien treaty in our history. In the newly constructed community hall, representatives from throughout the colony gathered alongside all 6 Nixians. Admiral Bennett stood at the front, her uniform crisp and formal. For too long, the Galactic Collective has defined interspecies relations through physical dominance, she began. Today we reject that premise. Intelligence, compassion, and cooperation are the true measures of advancement. Elix moved forward slowly, still careful with each step in Haven's gravity. We offer our knowledge freely to those who treated us, with dignity when others abandoned us. The Nixians presented a data crystal to the Admiral. It contained their complete technological database, centuries of innovation developed to overcome their physical limitations. Jason Moore could barely contain his excitement as he examined the first files. This is revolutionary, he told Abigail, who stood nearby. Their approach to energy generation alone could transform our colonies, and their materials science, they've developed alloys that can repair themselves. While the engineers marveled at the technological exchange, Abigail noticed something unusual. A small bird-like being waited at the edge of the gathering, partially hidden behind a support column. It was clearly not human or Nixian, with feathered arms and a sharp beak. Abigail approached carefully. Can I help you? The being startled, feathers ruffling. I meant no intrusion, it said in a melodic voice. I am Kira of the Kuril. I came with the supply vessel, hidden. I needed to see for myself. See what? Abigail asked. If it was true, that humans stand with the weak against the collective. The avian being's head tilted. My people have been neutral for generations, neither opposing nor supporting the collective openly, but many of us disagree with their practices. Are your people in danger too? Kira's feathers settled. Not as the Nixians were. We have value to the collective. Our flight abilities make us useful as scouts and messengers, but we are considered lesser, not permitted to govern our own affairs fully. And you came here to report back to your people? Yes. And to deliver a message. You are not alone in your stance. Many watch what happens here with great interest and hope. The implications were significant. The Nixians might not be the only species seeking a different path in the galaxy. 2 days later, the colony faced its first test. The collective announced economic sanctions against all human settlements in the sector. Supply ships would be turned away and trade routes blocked. In the command center, Admiral Bennett received the news with a grim smile. Exactly as we predicted. They won't risk open warfare, but they'll try to pressure us economically. Can Haven survive a blockade? Abigail asked. Administrator Winters looked worried. We're largely self-sufficient in food production, but we rely on imports for certain medical supplies and industrial components. That's why I brought reinforcements, Admiral Bennett replied. Not just military vessels, but supply ships, and I've authorized other human colonies to send additional resources. True to her word, vessels from neighboring human settlements began arriving within days, bringing supplies and messages of support. Some even brought volunteers, people who wanted to be part of what they were calling the Haven experiment. In the engineering complex, Jason Moore and a Nixian scientist named Tella worked tirelessly on a new project. By combining Nixian energy principles with human manufacturing techniques, they were developing a shield system unlike anything either species had created before. The collective's ships rely on brute force, powerful weapons requiring massive energy, Tella explained, her delicate fingers manipulating a holographic display. But our approach uses less energy more efficiently. Jason nodded enthusiastically. Their weapons hit hard, but our shield redirects the energy rather than just absorbing it. Completely different philosophy. Word of their project spread through the colony, giving people hope, but not everyone was comfortable with the changes happening on Haven. Frank Wilson, who had lost his mining contract when Nixian technology made traditional extraction methods obsolete, sat in the colony's bar, nursing his third drink. They come, here, change everything, and now we're facing sanctions. Was it worth it? He muttered to anyone who would listen. Abigail, off duty, and enjoying a rare moment of relaxation, overheard him. She slid onto the next stool. Change is always difficult, she said. But I've seen Nixian medical techniques save children who would have died otherwise. That seems worth some disruption. Frank scowled. Easy for you to say. You're military. You've got job security. Some of us are struggling. Before Abigail could respond, Alan Parker entered the bar. The security chief spotted her and hurried over. Lieutenant, we've got a situation. One of our communication arrays just went down. The techs say it looks like sabotage. The colony's leadership gathered quickly in the secure conference room. Evidence pointed to internal sabotage. Someone within Haven was working against them. The timing is suspicious, Admiral Bennett observed, just as we're making progress with the shield technology. I've been tracking unusual communications for weeks, Alan admitted. Someone's been sending encrypted messages during our regular supply drops. I couldn't crack the encryption, but the pattern matches collective protocols. A spy, Abigail said quietly. Or multiple spies, Alan corrected. The collective wouldn't rely on just one asset. Administrator Winters looked around the table, her expression troubled. Everyone in this room has access to sensitive areas of the colony. We need to be careful who we trust. The meeting ended with increased security protocols and a decision not to make the potential infiltration public knowledge. As the others filed out, Admiral Bennett held Abigail back. Lieutenant Mason, I've reviewed your service record and your handling of the Nixian First Contact. I'm promoting you to commander, effective immediately. I need someone I can trust to head up a special project. What kind of project, Admiral? Bennett's eyes gleamed with determination. We're not just going to defend Haven, we're going to create something new, an alternative to the collective. We're calling it the Sanctuary Accord, an interspecies alliance based on mutual respect and cooperation rather than physical dominance. Abigail thought of Kira, the Kuril messenger, and wondered how many other species might be watching what happened here, waiting to see if another path was possible. When do we start? She asked. We already have, Bennett replied, and the galaxy will never be the same. 2 years passed and Haven Colony had transformed. What began as a small human settlement now buzzed with activity from a dozen different species. The central plaza, once a simple gathering space, now featured buildings with varied architectural styles to accommodate the different needs of its inhabitants. Commander Abigail Mason, now in charge of the colony's mixed security force, walked through the morning market. Beside her moved Elix, no longer requiring assistance to navigate Haven's gravity thanks to a special exosuit designed by Jason Moore. The lightweight frame gave the Nixian added strength without restricting their natural movements. Hard to believe. It's been 2 years since you crashed here, Abigail said. Sometimes the best journeys begin with accidents, Elix replied. Their translator was no longer needed. Abigail had learned enough of the Nixian language to understand them directly. They passed a group of Kuril setting up a stall selling lightweight fabrics woven with patterns that seemed to shift in the light. Nearby, two massive Bellari, a species that had broken away from the collective to join the Sanctuary Accord, were helping construct a new building using their natural strength. "Security report from the outer system," said Alan Parker, approaching them with a data pad. The collective observation vessel changed position again. "They're staying just outside our defensive perimeter." Abigail nodded. "They've been watching us for months. Let them look. The more they see of what we've built here, the better." When news of Haven's successful integration of the Nixians had spread, other marginalized species began to reach out. The Kurill were the first to openly join the Sanctuary Accord, followed by the Bellari, who had grown tired of being valued only for their physical strength. Then came the Terresti, with their remarkable mathematical abilities, and the aquatic Miran, whose understanding of biological systems rivaled that of the Nixians. Each brought unique strengths and perspectives, and each arrival caused further fractures within the galactic collective. In the colony's main educational center, Grace Thompson now taught classes with students from 7 different species. Today, she was explaining Earth history to a fascinated audience. "Humans haven't always gotten it right," she told them, showing images of Earth's troubled past. "We've made mistakes, judged others by their appearances or abilities, but we've learned that true strength comes from diversity and cooperation." A young Nixian raised their hand. "Is that why the collective fears this place so much?" Grace smiled. "They fear what they don't understand. The idea that different kinds of strength can complement each other challenges their entire worldview." In the colony's advanced research facility, Jason Moore and Tella had moved beyond defensive technology. Their team, now including scientists from multiple species, was developing new medical treatments, sustainable food production methods, and communication systems that worked across different biological frameworks. "The latest reports from Earth are promising," Jason told Abigail when she visited that afternoon. 3 more collective species have formally requested asylum under the Sanctuary Accord. The balance of power is shifting. Not all the news was positive. The economic sanctions had hit some human colonies hard, and there had been isolated incidents of violence against Sanctuary Accord members in collective-controlled space. But with each passing month, more voices throughout the galaxy questioned the collective's authority. That evening, a special ceremony was held in the central plaza. A monument had been constructed, a sculpture showing human and Nixian hands joined together, with room for other species to add their own representations in the future. Carved at its base in multiple languages were the words, "Different strengths, common purpose." Admiral Bennett had returned for the occasion, along with representatives from Earth and 12 other species that had joined the Accord. The crowd that gathered was diverse in ways no one could have imagined when Haven was established. 2 years ago, a damaged ship carrying 6 refugees changed the course of galactic history, Admiral Bennett began. Today we celebrate not just their survival, but the beginning of a new approach to interstellar cooperation. As the ceremony continued, Abigail noticed an elderly Nixian she hadn't seen before, watching from the edge of the crowd. When the formal speeches ended, she made her way over to them. "I don't believe we've met," she said. The elder Nixian's skin had taken on a silvery quality with age. "I am Velex," they said in a voice that required no translation. "I arrived with the latest group from our homeworld. More escaped?" Abigail was surprised. "The collective's grip is weakening," Velex explained. "Their attention is divided by internal conflicts. Many who once enforced their rules now question them." Velex studied the monument thoughtfully. "There is something you should know, Commander. In our oldest stories passed down through generations, there is a prophecy about a time when the strong would protect rather than exploit, when physical power would be used to defend those without it. You're saying you predicted humans would help you?" Abigail was skeptical. Not humans specifically, just that somewhere among the stars there would exist a species strong enough to dominate, yet wise enough to choose a different path. Velix's large eyes blinked slowly. Perhaps that is what truly frightens the collective. Not just that they are losing power, but that an ancient truth is being revealed. That true strength lies in how power is used, not simply in possessing it. As the celebration continued around them, Abigail received an urgent message from the command center. She excused herself and hurried there, finding Admiral Bennett already reviewing the transmission. "It's from the collective leadership," Bennett said, her expression carefully neutral. "They're proposing talks, not just with us, but with representatives from all Sanctuary Accord species." "A trap?" Abigail asked. "Possibly, or a recognition of reality. Their unity is fracturing. 3 of their founding species are demanding reforms, including representation for physically weaker species in their governing council." Alan Parker, who had been monitoring collective communications, added, "Their economic indicators are declining. Turns out, excluding species with different abilities isn't just morally wrong, it's inefficient." Later that night, as Haven's twin moons rose in the sky, Abigail stood on the observation deck of the command center. Below, the lights of the colony twinkled, homes and workplaces filled with beings from across the galaxy, all living and working together. She watched as a group of children played in the community park, human kids alongside young Nixians, Kirill fledglings, and others. They had created some game that utilized each species' different abilities, laughing as they ran, floated, and climbed. Daniel Ross joined her at the railing. In the 2 years since finding the crashed Nixian ship, he had become the colony's chief medical officer and had married Linda Powell, a human rights lawyer who had arrived with the second wave of colonists. "Amazing, isn't it?" he said, nodding toward the playing children. "They don't see differences as obstacles, just different ways to solve problems." Abigail smiled. "When we found the Nixians, I just wanted to help people in trouble. I never imagined it would lead to all this." "That's the thing about standing up for what's right," Daniel replied. "You never know how far the ripples will spread." Below them, a Nixian child was being lifted onto the shoulders of a young Bellari so they could reach a high branch. Different strengths, working in harmony. "We were never the strongest species in the galaxy," Abigail said quietly. "But we knew. Strength isn't everything. Sometimes the greatest power comes from standing beside those who need you most." The stars shone overhead, countless worlds with countless possibilities, and for the first time in generations, many of those worlds now looked toward a future where different kinds of strength could exist side by side, each valued for what it could contribute to the whole.